Hey guys, how y'all doing? How y'all doing? It is Tuesday. Yes, it's Tuesday. I promise y'all, some days I don't know. I don't know. And it's not because I'm losing the days. I don't know what you want to call it. I don't say I'm losing any days. I'm saying that some days I don't quite remember what day it is when I first come on here. So, you know, give me a little grief. Don't give me as much grief. But y'all come in the room. I'm sharing. I want you guys to share too. And let me know when you guys are here. Um, how y'all day so far? Okay. Um, I'm pretty. I'm having a good day. Um, Definitely. Um, Pretty productive. Or at least I thought so, right? Um, let's see. Um, I'm trying to let a few people come on because I do want this to be a dialogue. I'm actually excited about the topic today because once I bring out a little transparency, you're going to understand why this is kind of a big deal for me. And you're probably thinking, oh, Paris, we've heard you talk about stuff like this before. But I don't know if you guys heard me to this depth because I really kind of, I sashay out of it, right? Because I just don't want to, I've never wanted to be pigeonholed and be very, one dimensional, and I've never wanted to be like, oh, I talk about one thing. Hey, Whitley girl, how you doing? What up, cuz? And so I really have been very particular about like not focusing on one thing too much. And in that process, I've probably kind of left the open plane, right? So, I'm kind of excited because I feel like once you get an understanding about that, it's a little bit it gives you a different place to go with it, right? And I feel like I'm able to really like dig in to um what I feel like we need to talk about and be unapologetic about it, right? So I don't know how many people are gonna come today, but I'm just going to kind of get started because I think it's a lot to talk about. And again, I'm excited about it. So if you saw the topic at all, the topic is the truth about motherhood and depression. Now I know some people saw me talking about this depression and they said, oh God, it's gonna be a depressing series. And listen, I want you guys to take that out your head. It's not gonna be one. But I think that just the same way as we can't be afraid to talk about hard issues, we can't be afraid to talk about stuff that doesn't sound nice and sweet and put in a box, right? And so let me tell you why this resonates with me so much. So I know when I would start talking about certain things, I always start talking about things from my perspective first. Why is that? And if you guys are just now coming along watching with me, first of all, welcome. Uh, but you need to understand that that's not just because I like to talk. That's not what that is. Whenever I start talking about me first, that is so I can build rapport, right? Nobody wants to be talked at. Nobody wants to always hear that they're wrong. Nobody wants to always feel like there's no that you have everything figured out and they don't, because that's the farthest from the truth anyway. So if I said it, you would, anybody who know me would believe it, right? Nor do I try to come off as that. I always try to be transparent and share my experiences so that we can all like talk about it, right? Because it's all about having a conversation, right? The whole thing is about having conversations that shift mentalities and mindsets, right? So when it comes to these conversations and these topics, I've always come from my point of view first. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing I need to say is that when I had a friend, when I was trying to kind of frame about what I would talk about mostly and what kind of direction I would go in, they were like, "Why don't you hit the single mother, tip? Because you can tell people how you've kind of trudged on through life and, you know, figured it all out. And I said, nope. And I was like so adamantly against it, because I did not want to be that. I didn't want that to be my coin thing, right? I didn't want to be that. That's how people identify me. I didn't want to be, oh, that girl's talking about how she survived being a single mom. Like that was like my biggest fear, right? I did not want that on any level. And because I feel like I'm more than just that, right? And I felt like so many other things I've overcome, and I don't think that's something to like necessarily overcome. I feel like it's just some part of my reality, not the definition of my reality. It's not my role, and I felt like I wanted to not just make it all about that, right? And also, just I didn't want to leave out anybody else. So, okay, so with those two things going on, I was very careful about not really talking about too many things with motherhood because, mind you, there are people that don't have kids, there are men here that are not mothers, and so that's a different point of view. um there are people who have kids and then their kids are not here anymore. I mean, it's a lot of different situations, so I try to be very careful not to go too much about kids, right? However, um what I realized the other day, and when I was going through some of the topics about the different types of depression, one of the things that it really resonated with me strongly was about motherhood. And I know they talked about one of the types of depressions is postpartum. And I wanted to talk about that, right? So I was going to just talk about that postpartum. And then I said, I'm not going to coin it and push it together and say it's all postpartum. I want to say that it is depression and motherhood. Why? Because postpartum is a very specific type of depression that happens right after you have the baby and when your chemicals change, and um, it's actually much more common than you think. And I'm going to give you stats and everything on that. But I also wanted to not just put it there. I wanted to address that there is so much depression happening with mothers, and I believe that the reality is that people don't allow them to speak about it. They don't allow them to have hard days. They don't allow mothers to be honest about their feelings, and much less they can't admit that they have mental health issue because they want to take their kids away. And so you have this moment and you have this situation where I believe that it's really put mothers in a really hard place where they can't really talk about mental health as freely as they want. And they definitely can't talk about how hard it is raising kids on a serious level, because then people start to judge them and they start to be concerned about them. And then, depending on whatever situation they're in, don't let them be in the middle of a divorce or a custody battle. Then somebody would say, well, I don't want them with my kids if they're battling depression, which is such the worst way for us to address that, right? So, I just wanted to have this conversation today. Yes, because I think that we have to be honest about this. And the minute that we don't say that our kids are our lives, and the minute we don't say that we enjoy every second and moment of motherhood, the minute that we don't rehearse and regurgitate the fact that it's the best thing that ever happened to me, is the minute people judge you. And you can't even have a real moment. You can't say you're tired. You can't say the kids wore me out today. You can't say that some days I just don't know how I'm gonna make it. You can't say that I'm having some dark thoughts here, or anything. You can't really be honest about it because there's so much judgment that happens, and the expectation is that you're supposed to always be 100% elated with motherhood. And I'm sorry, guys, if you're watching, this is not just I am going to I didn't realize that November was the actual men's mental health month as well. And so I will be talking the next time about men and mental health, but today it's about women and motherhood particularly. And I'm sorry if I exclude anybody, but I think this is a conversation for us all, because we all either are mothers or have mothers. So anybody who has had a mother, you need to hear this as well, because they might have never told you some of the things I want to tell you today. So if you are a mother, you had a mother, and or currently have a mother, even if you're an adult, if you are somebody who is parenting with the mother, so men, this is for you too, because you need to understand these things that people don't talk about and are not real about. And then even people who are, again, don't have children, you need to, again, somebody who's dealing in this way. And I also want to make sure that not only do you understand them, but you are understanding how to operate from a healthy place. Why? Because sometimes we do the bad things, and we make sure we what's the word, unconsciously, um are people that are inflicting harm, right? And I told you, ignorance is not an excuse. This is why we have these conversations, so that you can't say something like, well, I never knew. Well, you're gonna know today. You're gonna learn today that there are some things that we need to deal with around this subject. This is something that we don't want to talk about. If you don't always, like, I even see it on social media. um the minute someone says something about how hard their day was with their child, people can become very kind of judgmental and abusive and say things like, well, if you didn't like kids, you should have kept your legs closed, or all type of crazy things I've seen, which are unnecessary, are cruel, and more importantly, don't allow people to have human, real moments. That don't allow people to have real human moments. And so, what happens when people can't have human moments? They legitimately shut down. Or when I say shut down, they stop talking to you. How about that? And if this is happening in society, if this is a regular, normal thing, if we think this is regular and we perpetuate it, then guess what? You have um, a bunch of women who, mind you, motherhood is you opening your body. It's a 50-50 chance of life and death. Like, it's a really serious thing. So many women die in childbirth. The severity of motherhood, you literally are isolating these women who have went through this huge thing to bring a life into the earth. And especially if they've done it multiple times, they don't have the right to say when they don't feel good. They don't have the right to say when they're tired. And then if they do, then what a lot of them won't say it because they feel like, what support is there? What help is there? And if I say it, does anybody care? And is anybody going to say that I'm complaining and I don't care about my child? Um, so the goal here is to be honest and truthful about these feelings, these thoughts, because if you dishonor the feelings and the thoughts, then guess what? You will not be the best parent you can be. You won't be the best mother you can be. I mean, sister. You won't be the best friend that you can be, because then you're gonna not be authentically you. And if you don't feel like you can be the real you, then you skim a little bit off the top of every other title you have. What does that mean? Well, if I am feeling, I want to give a visual example. What's my visual example? Didn't really think this through, so I'm going to kind of play it. Okay, I'm going to have to just describe what I mean. If I have 3 cups, and all 3 cups are supposed to represent, and let's say all 3 cups are filled, and all 3 cups are supposed to represent the 3 roles in my life that I play, right? And let's say if I give those roles a title, 1 cup would be I'm a parent. Another cup, let's say I'm married, right? Another cup is I'm a friend, right? So I'm a spouse, a parent, and a friend. Let's say those are the 3 cups that I have, right? And those are my 3 roles that I play in life. That's what I do. These are the 3 things that I identify as. And if you can visualize that these 3 cups are full, okay? And in the roles of life, you're pouring out some of you into the roles, right? And as you're pouring out you in each role, and I think I've talked about certain things before, especially like with the mug, and if you pour out from an empty cup, you guys know about that already. Well, The reason I'm bringing this up is that if you are supposed to hold the roles of these three cups, if you are depleted in one area, you're going to make things off balance. And so oftentimes you're going to have to kind of pull from one of your other cups into the cup that's been depleted. So let's say like you're completely depleted in the motherhood role, well, or the parenting role. Well, then you're gonna have to take some and pour from the spouse role, and then you also have to take some and pour from the friend role. And why does that matter to you? It matters because then now you're gonna have extra pressure from the roles that you're taking time from, and they're going to feel that. They're going to say, whoa, you don't spend as much time with me. You're not as present. You don't seem emotionally there, available for this one role. You seem like you're just not really present here. And it causes another form of conflict and friction because now you're already feeling depleted. You don't feel like you can talk about how depleted you are in motherhood. And then because you're having to take some of your energy or some of your whatever from the other two roles, then they are starting to feel it. Your friend might confront you, and just when you need a friend, just when you need somebody there to support you and be there for you, they literally turn their back on you because they feel that you are not giving equal energy in the relationship anymore. And so now you have been ostracized by your friend, and and you feel some conflict between your spouse, and you're feeling lonely and depleted in the motherhood role, and all the whole time you don't feel like you can be honest about it, and therefore you are quiet about it, and you are secretly actually um becoming really resentful and dark, and you can't talk about it because, again, what are you gonna do? Say, I blame it on my kids? You can't say that. Your kids didn't ask to be here. um you don't know how to say it. You don't know what is safe to say. So sometimes you just don't say anything at all. Or if you say something, it has to be in the form of a joke, because if I joke about it, nobody will judge me too harshly. Listen, y'all don't have to say I'm telling the truth, but I know I am because I've been there. I've been there, and I know a lot of mothers who've been here. And the reality is, the less that you feel heard, the less that you feel that you can communicate, the more judged you feel, the more alone you feel. And you end up, especially when you do have a form of clinical depression, it gets so hard because you end up now um, turning into yourself. And you, instead of asking for help and telling, you are now saying that you start telling yourself stuff like nobody cares. um, I'm supposed to do these things. I'm a failure because I can't be the type of mom I've seen, or the type of mom I perceive my mom to be. I am a failure because people do this, having more kids and working and doing all these things, and I can't get it together. And so now you built a story up around what you are not and what you don't have the right to say. And in that whole thing, you have now put this load on your shoulders that basically has told you that I'm not going to say anything about it, and I'm going to retreat in. And so then you give in to, especially if you have clinical depression, you give in to those defeating thoughts. Okay. Um, and if you guys are watching on replay, just let me know. You put your comments in so I can know what your thoughts are. But I know this is something that is definitely is not something that is rare. Actually, it's quite it's a quite regular thing. And so the goal today is for us to take this seriously. I'm sorry, guys. My computer is doing something. Y'all know, I told y'all this is raw and real. You'll never have to worry about me if this is not true. Me doing this show, because I'm gonna show you everything. But yeah, like I gather, like if anybody doesn't know, I'm in school for psychology, and in my books I'm reading different things, and my different classes is so interesting about the different type of how the brain functions with our personalities, with the roles that we have, with social interaction, with behavior, with the different chemicals, the nature versus nurture. It's so many different pieces to the puzzle. It's so hard to always put it um, in one ball. It's so much. Um, yeah, Woodley, thanks for saying you could be relate. I know, and I know everybody's not on yet, but I know this is a real thing. I don't have to speculate. I know because I've experienced it. I talk to mothers regularly that experience it, and not only do I do research through my books, I also do research on social media and talking to people. So, oh my God, I was on a live the other day in TikTok, and um, some of the comments that you read of people that are just struggling to really just survive um, mentally and not feeling like they have a voice. And then when they finally feel like they have a voice, they go so far and they go so deep, and that's when you see it open up. And I think that this is so much more taboo than we think it is, right? Because I know I can hear somebody saying, Paris, you're making an issue out of something that's not really real. I talk to moms all the time. They always talk about how things can be hard with kids. I said, right, but again, think about what I'm talking about. How often are they able to have a safe place? And I'm talking about every woman, right? If you are somebody who has friends and family that you can talk to about your mental health, and or times when you're stressed out about motherhood and your kids, without judgment and without feeling any type of anger or feeling, that, ostracized, that is amazing. That is amazing. And I need you to understand, you need to go ahead and like really be grateful for that. Be grateful for that and don't let it go. But I'm not asking you, I'm telling you that it's not the regular thing, right? And don't have a toxic or dysfunctional family unit. When that person cannot understand what it looks like to have real support, right? Like I tell you, we all have our traumas, we all have our issues. The reality of it is sometimes you get to a point where you don't have anybody who can really help you out. And especially if you don't have let's say this, I call it the struggle and the struggle mentality, where you ask for help and then people say, well, I did this without that and that, and they invalidate your experience because they feel like what it means to be a good mother is to sacrifice and to wear many hats, right? And looks like you do it seamlessly, right? So you get to a point where if you're not able to cook a full dinner every night, have your child in 3 sports, have your kids have straight A's, have their clothes ironed the night before and them in the tub, and them know 3 languages, and uh, them be respectful and clean their room. If you and you volunteer for PTA, and you take them out into the park every weekend, if you and then take them to church on Sunday, if you don't do all of those things simultaneously, then there's judgment that comes about, and it's like you're not doing this thing called motherhood. You hear people say, oh, I'm not good at adulting. And that's a joke, right? It's a running joke. I'm not good at adulting. But then the whole motherhood thing is such a isolating situation that it starts outward and sometimes it starts inward. And so depending on where it came from or where it's coming at, sometimes we are like, we put ourselves in these jails in our head where we literally are not able to how to say it? I don't want to say um our perspective is limiting, right? We don't even we're not even able to verbalize what we really feel. And this is how I know. Let me tell you how you know when you're in a moment where somebody didn't feel like they could say something, and then all of a sudden they heard other people talking about it, and they feel more comfortable. So sometimes I'll say something like, yeah, I really love my son. He's amazing. But man, sometimes he pushes me. And if you ever are in a room full of kids, adults or mothers that have teenage children, oh my God, you'll see the relief in their shoulders like, man, what are you talking about? Yes, I know that feeling. Girl, I didn't want to say nothing, but this child, and what you'll start to see in that moment is some freedom. The gates have come down. Nobody wants to come out the gates first because they don't know what people are going to say. They don't know if people are going to judge them. They don't know how people are going to be receptive of them. They don't know if somebody's going to take back what they said and say it to somebody else and talk behind their back. They don't know if they're going to be judged by it. So it becomes a moment where I don't say anything about this and I hold it in, and I'm pushing this stuff down, and I'm suffering in silence because I have these feelings, and I don't want to say these out loud because you're going to judge me about how I feel. That's this movie called Bad Moms, and some people don't like it. I'm not saying you should go see it or anything like that, but I love the premise behind it, because the premise behind the movie was there's no one um size fits all for this role of being a mom and trying to take care of your children, and all the things that you're supposed to do to be considered the perfect mom. Let's throw those out the window because it's not going to work for every single person, and let's not be contained to those things, and let's not be beat up so much. And it showed the lives of several women who are doing this thing called life and motherhood the best they can with the kids that they have, and trying to kind of like weather the storms and figure out what works, and trial and error, and just seeing how hard it was, and sometimes doing what seems unconventional, sometimes doing something that somebody might frown on, but it works for their family unit. And although it was a comedy, the premise under it I love. It's the idea that don't measure yourself up against someone else. Don't sit in comparison. Don't have this idea that your house has to be clean, you know, um 10 times a day. You have to have dinner cooked at 6 p.m. You have to read a book at a certain time. You got to make sure you bake brownies for PTA and then go to the mom groups. Like, it's so much that it will literally make you feel like you're just nothing, right? You're really nothing. And so, I really enjoyed the idea of it. I didn't go as far as to like get a shirt that said Bad Moms, but I thought, like, who cares what you think about my parenting? Unless I'm harming my child, I don't care your thoughts about what I do with my child. I don't. I really don't. Um, when people say, "Oh, you're doing such a great job with your child," I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And I'm being polite and kind, but they don't see what happens at home. They don't see the meltdowns. They don't see the breakdowns. They don't see when I cry myself to sleep. Oh yes, and I've cried myself to sleep so many times. And this is nothing against having children. Please, anybody who wants to believe that this is me complaining about my child or being a mother, you're in the wrong place. And that's what I want to be very careful about. People not allowing people to be real. Um and I know some people say, well, I can't say that. My parents don't let me say it. And when I say it, they kind of say, oh, you should be grateful and this and that. But see, I need us to realize that it's a reason for that too. Because most of our parents, um, they didn't have that same freedom either, right? They didn't have that freedom to really about um say anything about having how they felt and how they've weathered motherhood, especially if um like I've heard people say, oh, you only have one child, huh, see, figure out what it looks like to have three, or you don't know what it's like to have 4 or 5. And I always look at them and say, you're right, I have no idea what it's like to have 3 or 4 or 5, but I know my journey with my one, and my journey with my one can get hairy. And I appreciate what you're doing, because I don't think I could have done that. I mean, I would have if I had to, but I'm not sure if I could. But my situation and my story is still what it is, right? And being able to stand in your truth and being able to say, you know what, it's not a competition. You know what I'm saying? You being able to carry your kids on your back through snow, through earthquake, you did an amazing job. But if somebody raised their child in the suburbs and fed them lattes and their kid is doing good too, they did an amazing job too. And no, there's no weight or scale that has to happen. There's no comparison that needs to happen. Um, this is when we support each other. This is when we say, you know what? I don't know what you're going through. I know I tell people, especially when I meet new moms, that first year, baby, if you never had a child before, that first year when that baby's crying and when you can't get them to cry, don't let them be colicky. Don't let you be tired. Let's say you've worked and then going to school or whatever, or even if you're just a stay-at-home mom. And I said just a stay-at-home mom. Let me take that back. There's no such thing as just a stay-at-home mom, because of course a stay-at-home mom is the cook and she's the maid and she's the person who is teaching the child, and also the you know the tailor, just everything the household needs. So there's never a dull moment. Even when I was off for the first 5 months of my pregnancy, it was always something to do, and I was exhausted because just being a mother in those moments when your child needs everything from you is literally a lot of energy and work. And so when we have these moments of isolation where it feels like nobody sees you, nobody knows how exhausted you are. Let me tell you something. Sleep deprivation, it really does mess with your mind. It really really does. Like, it's a whole thing, and it's like we don't really honor what it feels like to not be able to catch a break sometimes. Literally, sometimes we say that's just a struggle, that's just doing what we have to do, but we're not honest about how it affects our mental health. Like, what happens when this is not just a moment you're going through? What happens when this is a series of things you go through and you don't have an outlet? And so now you feel alone, you feel uncared for, you feel rejected, you feel dejected. What happens then? Does anything happen? Like, I want us to have those conversations because I think that we're not really going there. We're not really um, saying what needs to happen uh, when we have these moments, right? And how can people support you? My goal is to get us talking about it first, right? That's why the show is called Conversations from Parents, because from my desk to yours, if we start the conversations, we can create an atmosphere that can glean, and we can glean from each other, and then this conversation can kick off that conversation, and that conversation can start that conversation, and now we have people talking. And when you have people talking, the shame is pulled away. Okay, this is no longer a taboo thing. This is no longer something I have to hide from. You know, I used to tell somebody before, I'm deaf to the superwoman. Like, I just don't like the title. We go ahead and people say, oh, mothers are superwoman. I know what they were trying to do, but I'm gonna say I just don't like it because it's so much pressure. It's so much unspoken pressure about what the role requires. And if you don't do several things great, then you're not really doing it. You're not cutting it. And you have people out here that are exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically. They're worn out and they're worn thin financially. And they really feel like they're at the edge of their like existence of what they can do. And they're really in a really dark place. They don't feel like they have anybody they can talk to because we glorify the whole struggle movement. We glorify the idea of, well, our parents used to work on a on a field all day, sun up to sundown. They did this and that, and they didn't even complain. And although that can be true, and a lot of people for our, we know where our families came from. It is true. But are we supposed to do better than our parents did? Isn't that the dream? When Martin Luther King talked, he said, I have a dream that my children be able to, not be judged by their skin and but by the content of their character. Like, this is a dream for not just his kids, but his kids' kids. He wants, he pretty much said, hey, maybe we can't see this in my lifetime, but I want it for my children. I want better for them. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, maybe our grandparents didn't see a life of ease and pleasure. And I'm not saying that they didn't have any good times. I'm just saying maybe things were really hard for them all the time. And that's their reality. Then that means they paved the way. Because what happens when you pave a road? It means that maybe that rocky road, it gets a little bit smoother as time goes and it progresses. You catching me on this analogy I have here? That means that they paved the way for us. That means the more you go down the road, the more established the road is, the better the road is, the smoother the road is. So let's come out of the struggle mentality of the idea that that's what we're supposed to do. That's what makes you a mom. Like, it's sometimes I love inspirational stories about people that have overcome, and I love it, and it's great. But I also feel like let's just sometimes clap to the mother that got her child to school 30 minutes late when her car broke down and her kid had a whole meltdown in the middle of the expressway, but she still made it to school and she still made it to work. Those are the things that we should clap about too. It doesn't look pretty. She might came and her makeup is spit all over her face right now, but she pushed through. Like, those are the moments we need to clap up, because some people are on the edge. And us making things look so easy all the time. Listen, if you have a grace to do everything and it looks well, I am not jealous of you. I'm not saying stunt your shine. Definitely speak well of yourself. I applaud you. I applaud everybody what they do individually. But it's not just, applause is not just for the people who look like they have it perfect. Applause is for the people that wake up every day and do it again when it's hard. And it's for us, and I think transparency allows people to be real and get help. Hey Yolanda, hey Crystal girl, you say you were there. Listen, girl, I think we all were there, are there, all have our moments. And I just don't think we have enough freedom at times to really be honest about the moments. I think there's a lot of people suffering in silence, and they're thinking they're doing the good old work of the Lord by just being there. And this is what motherhood is. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be something that, I sacrifice for. And I'm not saying that you don't sacrifice for your kids. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying it's hard sometimes, and you get to say it's hard. You get to cry. You get to call somebody and say, I need to talk. I need to vent. You should have a support system. Like, we talk about this village all the time. And I feel like this village sometimes is shrinking so much, right? And it gets to a point where, like, people say, oh, you're the village. But then it's like this critical nature comes where when you try to access that village, you get kind of, what's the word I want to say? What's the word? You get like questioned about why you need the village, right? Or you get shamed into why you need it, right? And the reality of it is that we need to create environments where people feel like they can ask for help. Like, I've been there, and where sometimes it's like, look, I just need a night. I need a night where I can go to sleep without having to like chase the kids into bed. I need a night where I can wake up and I'm not having a kid dancing on my head at 5 a.m. and I can sleep in until 10 a.m. If you give me that night, I can really do some good self-care and allow me to be the best parent that I could be for my children. Because when your cup is empty and you're pouring from an empty cup, you are really not able to be the best parent you are to your children. And then that depression becomes, it beats you down. I should have had some water here. That depression beats you down because you just don't feel like you are good enough. You're not doing the job well. You're exhausted all the time. You're pulled on all the time. You don't feel like you're giving your kids everything that they need. And it's like this self-defeating cycle that you're in. That honestly, if you don't get enough help, you don't get enough sleep, you don't get enough support, you feel like you're constantly on this cycle, on this wheel. And it's really just defeating. It really makes you feel really walked on. Crystal, I love what you said. The moment to feel human, Judge. Yeah, we all need a moment to be able to be just human. Um, I remember the first time, I remember when my son was first born, I remember saying that I would never let him watch TV because I read all these books and journals about how TV is bad for the kid mind. They don't need it. And, you know, you should do the best for it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do TV. Not going to happen in this household. Baby, I don't think my son got to 6 months without this TV. I think he might have got to 3 months, maybe. And I don't know if he even got that far because I don't want to lie. But it's so funny because I felt bad because I needed a break at times. You know, I used to hear people say, oh, people use the TV to babysit their children. And in that moment, when Barney was on, and I could sit back and my son could sit in the rocker and he would just be mesmerized by Barney, and I could clean up or do something else. I love that TV for them moments. You understand that? And someone might judge me and say, oh, if you were a better parent, you would make sure that you could do that without having to listen, Linda. I don't care what you think. I used to allow that type of stuff to get me and make me feel bad. But guess what? You do it how you can. As long as you're not mistreating your child, and let's be honest, nobody's perfect. So there's going to be moments in life where your child doesn't feel like they got all your attention. They don't feel like you've given them everything. But guess what? You're human. You get to be human. You get to be human. You get to be human. And so my hope and wish is that we have these conversations and we're more open and honest than we've ever been before. And then we're able to get accountability groups and support groups that allow us to be more human, to be heard, to be seen, to get support. You know how many people I know don't have a good support system? It's rough. It's so rough, especially when we've been taught that you're supposed to get it on your own. I've done everything myself. I don't ask for help. I don't need help. And we're in this environment where we like glorify that. Like, yeah, I did this on my own. I grind by myself. I didn't need anybody. And the truth is, I do need people. I do. I need people. I need help. You know, people help me with my child. You know the people. I had a whole village. And my village did not just consist of a few people. It was all different people. People related to me, people that were not related to me, friends. I had a village, and I appreciate my village. And even with having a village, I still had days where I felt alone by myself, like I did not have anybody. There were still days that were like that. Heck, I'm still a mother. I still have days like that. And then I know some people could try to take that personal and say, oh, well, you have people. Listen, we all have people, but sometimes you don't know or you don't feel like you can really go there for whatever the reason is. There's still no judgment on that. It's just the moment of understanding that this road and this life can be something that is not easy with or without help. That's my point. So us being kind and understanding that and talking about these things and opening up the conversation for them, it really is something that we really need to be honest about. And especially I know a lot of parents went through a lot with this pandemic, having the kids at home. Listen, because when I started at home with the pandemic, my child was with me too, and baby, that was no easy thing because they are trying to adjust to the new normal for them. You're trying to adjust to not only work if you're working, but then also them being at home and helping them to like navigate the education system remotely, which is something that we never had to do. It was definitely not an easy feat, and it's still not easy. And understanding what type of effects that had on people. I saw these arguments between like teachers and parents, and it just got ugly. You know, this idea of well now the teach now the parents appreciate us teachers more. Now they know what we go through, or vice versa. The teachers don't, understand how much things happen, and um, they don't get what it's like to have to come home and after work or being at work and having several different grades to have to be able to do this, and you try to support them and help them out. Um, and what we should have done is just been more open and listen and more empathetic and less blame, casting less blame, and being more honest about the idea that, man, this stuff is hard and there's no one answer. Oh, Mama Patch, don't worry about being late. I appreciate you coming on. But just being honest about what um what challenges we have and supporting each other, um giving secrets. Sometimes I think somebody's top I think little stuff when you're really having a hard moment, from little tips from other mothers are things that like keep you afloat. Sometimes somebody being able to say, hey, you know one of the things I used to do is um, use this little meal prep, and if I did that, dinner was only in 5-10 minutes, and I had time while the kids were eating and doing their homework to have some time to myself. Those little moments and those little tricks humanize you again. It kind of like it reinflates you when you're deflated, and it allows you to be able to have a moment to gather yourself, right? What do they say? Live another day to fight it. Wait, live to fight another day. Sometimes that's all we need. Sometimes that whole idea of just being able to um, get the energy to be able to say, okay, I made it through this day. Okay, let me take a deep breath. Let me rest up and refuel so I can get to tomorrow. And this is all just me talking about motherhood, the things that we encounter in motherhood, being honest about how the effects of um, depression can um, really weigh down. And we haven't even gotten into like deep clinical depression where you're diagnosed, because then the point is that are we allowed to go to see somebody, or is somebody going to try to take our kids from us? And is that why some women are not going to talk and go talk to a therapist, because they're scared that somebody's going to report them? I've heard people say all the time that that their mental health has been used against them in court. And don't get me wrong, I do understand there are people that abuse the system and abuse their kids and all type of horrible things. But then I also know that there is a way to have mental health issue and still be a parent that is getting treatment, that is getting help, and still um, able to take care of your children in a healthy way with support. It absolutely is possible. Um, but that's why we have to have these conversations, because are we not getting treatment because we believe that we're going to be judged and therefore keep it to ourselves, and then something horrible happens later and we want to, oh, nobody ever saw it? But are we making an environment that's conducive enough for people to be able to say, I'm struggling, I'm having a hard time, and I want to be able to say that without being beat over the head, you know I think there should be some times where, we always talk about these teen mothers and the kids are getting pregnant. Of course, nobody wants nobody that could be pregnant before they should really are able to, you know, be on their own, well, I understand that. However, I don't think they need another negative word. I'm so anti people beating down on the youth, especially ones that are pregnant and have kids out of wedlock by whatever, however the situation happened. Once you encounter them, you should be trying to encourage them and support them. What happened to making a situation where if they're telling you that they're not feeling good and they're having a hard time, that we actually get the kids for a day or two, or give them a week, some time. And people say, well, they shouldn't have laid down and had these kids if they couldn't take care of them. I understand what you're saying, but you can't say that and in the same breath if something horrible happens next week, say, oh my God, I never saw that coming. You have to pick a side, right? You have to be able to say, wow, if I could help somebody regain their footing so that they can get the help that they need, so they can be a better parent. Because mind you, let's be honest, how we are as a mother does affect our children. It does. And I don't want to put that weight on you if you're a mother, but I am saying that this is why we can't ignore it. This is why we can't pretend it's not happening, because if you're not getting the help you will affect your children in a negative way. They absorb everything. They see everything. Yes, kids are resilient. Yes, they recover from a lot of things, but to pretend like your kids don't see anything, you're being a little naive there, right? And I'm not saying that you have to be perfect in front of your kids. What I am saying is, if you know something's not right, you need to go get the help you need so that you can go ahead and live the most healthiest life you can, so that you are allowing your children to be as healthy as they can. As you can see, this topic is very heavy, it's very deep. I didn't even get all the way into it like I wanted to, so I'm probably gonna continue with this a little bit more on Thursday because it's just so deep. I didn't even get to postpartum depression. um yeah, I think I'm gonna have to continue this a little bit more on Thursday, and then I'll push back next week and I'll go and talk about men's mental health. I told y'all depression is such a huge topic. There's so many ways you can go with it. I definitely won't be able to cover everything this whole month, but I just really wanted to talk about it. And hopefully I'll also be able to talk about what the depression and the holidays look like, right? And being able to talk about that more and be realistic about what we can do to combat that as well. So I hope that you guys got something from this. I hope that you feel seen. I hope you feel heard. I hope that you feel that you're not alone. I have some cool things coming up to make sure that I am being more supportive to what I've seen a lot, which is some people that just are exhausted in this area. They're mothering and they feel exhausted and depleted, and I know what that feels like. And so I want to make sure that we have more support even in the mental health area, so that we are making sure that nobody's doing it they feel like they're doing it by themselves. um, so thank you guys. If you just came on, go ahead and um, catch the replay because I'm done. I'm about to end this right now. Please comment, like, share. If you guys are not a part of my YouTube page, please go ahead and subscribe there, because I'm going to be taking my live away from Facebook to YouTube. That's going to happen by the end of the year. So I can make sure that we are getting um, most of our stuff there, right? And I'll be sharing more things that you won't see. Um, so that everybody has it. Mama Pat, you said, are you putting up where you can get help? Absolutely. That's something that I said I want to do about this whole depression series, is making sure that I give more resources for where they can get reach out to speak to therapists. Even if you say I don't have the money, there are low income resources. I have a whole sheet together. I put one out before, but I want to do more. Um, I want to do more in that area as far as making sure people have the resources. I'm gonna put it out again and update it, and then also making sure that they have the suicide hotline, so they are aware that when you have these thoughts, these dark thoughts, these moments, that you understand there's help. I'm also going to be putting stuff out about support groups because I really, really, really believe in support groups. So thank you for asking me. I appreciate that as a reminder. So I'll go ahead also and put some of that stuff up, hopefully this week. But I thank you guys for rocking with me. You guys are awesome. I am going to get out of here, but don't forget that you are enough. You're always enough. And even if you don't believe it, I believe it. And so you keep on saying it, you'll believe it as well. Guys, don't forget to go to my website, parispjohnson.com. If you guys have not signed up for my mailing list, please sign up for it. I mean, is it my mailing list? I think that's my email list. Sign up for it online. I got so many cool things coming down the pipeline. You don't want to miss it. Black Friday is about to be amazing. Got a lot of cool stuff happening for the end of the year. We're gonna end this year with a bang. So again, if you're just coming on now, watch the replay. About to post it now. Love you guys. See you Thursday. I didn't even crack into it like I wanted to. So we definitely gonna continue motherhood and depression next week. And it's not depressing. It's not a depressing topic. We're just gonna talk about the realness of it, right? It's time out for fluffy conversations. This is the stuff we need to talk about more so we can get the help we need, right? Okay, guys.